Wonderful to see everybody. I'm very excited that you're here, and I'm even doubly excited to introduce Tina Annibell. She's a holistic coach. She has tons of great information for us today, so I'm going to leave it to her to start us off and have a great day.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Is that microphone picking up my voice? It is? Okay, great. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you all for joining me in this presentation this morning. So, as you know, my name is Tina Annibell. I'm a holistic health coach, an educator, a speaker, and a chef. And I received my training from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. But I believe what really qualifies me to do this work in the world is my own personal healing journey. Way back when, before I even knew that health coaches were a thing, I was chronically ill and woefully unhappy. For years, I suffered with massive digestive issues and hormonal imbalances. My face and back was covered with purplish, disfiguring cystic acne, and I was constantly bloated, gassy, constipated. I had a terrible addiction to sugar, which wreaked all sorts of havoc on my body. And as you might imagine, I was painfully self-conscious about my appearance. My self-esteem was in the toilet, and that really held me back from living my life. And I went to doctors. For years, I went to doctors. I was on many different medications. And it not only didn't help, things continued to get worse. And I really believed if I could figure out how to eat, what to eat, that I could get better. And I was right. At a certain point in this journey, after going to doctors and saying, okay, try this medication, do this, I realized I had to take a different approach. And I started to read books. I dove deep into books on nutrition. I started to do research. And I started experimenting with different ways of eating. And in that process, I recovered my health. What I learned was that food can be used as an instrument for recovering one's health. And not that, that doesn't sound that remarkable to us, right? But yet, for all that time that I went through all of that illness and unhappiness and all those doctor's visits, no one ever asked me what I was eating. We never spoke about food. So it was just so remarkable to me. One of the key things that I learned that was critical for me to figure this out was learning to listen to my body's messages and interpret them correctly. I didn't realize that all those years, all of those symptoms were just my body like crying and screaming out to me saying, things are out of balance, pay attention. It wasn't until I realized that I was able to start making changes. And when I did, my physical health improved dramatically. I discovered I had food sensitivities. I didn't even know there was such a thing as food sensitivities. And when I swapped out those foods, my brain started working better and my digestion woes started to fade away. The bloat, the gas, the constipation disappeared. I lost weight without trying. I kicked the sugar cravings to the curb. And I just felt lighter, happier, calmer. I discovered what it felt like to be comfortable in my own body. And then the rest of my life began to change too. I began to do all the things that were filed away under one day when I feel better and look better, I'll ... So I traveled. I backpacked through mountain ranges, and I sailed through Polynesian islands, and I took up kayaking, and I became certified as a master gardener and a scuba diver. I made new friends. I went on retreats. I left a hateful job and became an entrepreneur, and my life became big and gratifying and fun and meaningful. And none of this would have been possible if I was still eating the foods that kept me feeling heavy, lethargic, and sick. So I really learned through firsthand experience that food can be a catalyst not only for transforming one's health, but for transforming one's life. And that insight lit a fire in me to help other people to do the same. So in 2007, I left my career in the mortgage business and I became certified as a health coach, and I established my practice, Nourished Living. And since then, I've taken my own transformation and helped thousands of other women with their transformation. So during this process that I went through, there were obviously many changes that I made with how I was feeding myself. But perhaps one of the most significant changes I made, and one that had an almost immediate, noticeable, positive impact on my health, was re-engineering my breakfast. And that's what this talk about is today. I want to help you guys to do that. So back then, when I was clueless and unhealthy, I would maybe stop at Starbucks and get a venti soy chai latte with, extra squirts of something in it, whatever that is in that bottle. Maybe a bagel, maybe I'd fix myself some eggs for breakfast if I had a little bit of extra time. And I didn't realize that what I was eating for breakfast was having such a negative effect on me. It wasn't until I started to eat different breakfast and I started paying attention that I started making the connections. And what I learned, and what I help the people I work with to learn through direct experience, is that what you eat for breakfast will affect your hunger levels, your cravings, your mood, and your energy levels throughout the rest of the day. So you probably all know that what you eat for breakfast will at least affect you for the next several hours after eating it, right? But did you know that what you eat for breakfast can affect your hunger level for dinner and after that same night? It seems like that might not be possible, but yet it is true. And when we have the wrong type of breakfast, it can lead to cycles of irritability, cravings, and fatigue throughout the day. And it can also slow down our metabolism. And in my work with people, I see that many of them are making the same mistake that I was making. So even with clients who are eating, right, they're not eating sometimes the right foods for them, and that could have a negative effect on them. So if you're sitting there thinking, all right, well, tell us what right is, I want to first go through some of the wrong things and why they're wrong, because I think it's really useful, helpful, important for you to understand how the foods you are eating are impacting you physiologically. So first, a quick look at some of the wrong foods. These are foods that are high glycemic foods. You've heard this term before, right? High glycemic means that these foods are absorbed quickly into the bloodstream. They cause a spike in your glucose levels, followed by what? Crash in your glucose levels. And one important thing to know, wherever your blood sugar goes, so does your energy, and so does your mood. And every time you have a crash, what do you want? Yes, something to bring you back up. So keeping your blood sugar from not doing this and doing something more like this is sort of a foundational principle for eating well and having good health overall. So what are some of our typical breakfast foods, American breakfast foods that we have that cause this? Bagels, donut cereal, muffins, waffles, yogurt, especially the fat-free flavored kind, some of the highest sugar food in the market. Instant oatmeal, egg whites, some things that we even think of as being healthier. For some people, even steel-cut oats or old-fashioned oatmeal won't stabilize their blood sugar. For some people it will, and that's what I'm going to help you to set up an experiment for yourself to figure out how it will affect you. What about juice? Coffee, frou-frou coffee drinks, especially with all of the stuff in them. So when you have these type of breakfast, you could experience the cycle of these blood sugar swings to varying degrees. At the extreme end, you might feel shortly after breakfast exhausted, grumpy, and strongly craving coffee, carbs, or sweets to bring you back up. And at the not so extreme end of the cycle, you might feel, hungry 2 hours after breakfast and have a slight dip in mood and energy that you barely notice because it's just become accustomed. You've become accustomed to it. It's just your normal. So it's not a red flag that something is off. High glycemic breakfasts. Remember before I said that what you eat for breakfast can affect your hunger level for dinner and after dinner snacking? I want you to understand why. Hunger and satiety is dictated by hormones in your body. There's two, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the satiety hormone. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So ghrelin tells you to eat. Leptin tells you stop eating. There's a daily cycle of leptin and ghrelin in your body when it's working as it should. And ghrelin is high in the morning, which would make sense. When you get up after not eating for a long period of time, body should be getting the message to eat. After eating, leptin is increased. Leptin says stop eating. Leptin also increases fat burning, especially in our middles. And leptin, the one that tells you to stop eating and increase fat burning, is generally, or supposed to be, high at the end of the day. So by the time dinner is done, your body should be giving you the message, stop eating, start fat burning. And that fat burning should happen when you sleep. There's things that disrupt this normal cycle. And one of them is high glycemic foods early in the day. Because what happens then is that triggers leptin to become higher earlier in the afternoonish and then drop back down at the end of the day. So now you have a bigger appetite for dinner. You can't figure out why you're still hungry at 8 o'clock at night and you keep opening the cabinets and the fridge. And you're not doing fat burning when you sleep, as your body is meant to. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So, what is the right type of breakfast? It varies per person. I wanted to give you some guidelines, and then I want to explain to you how you could do this breakfast experiment so you can figure out for your particular body what is right and what is right at this time, because it can change, especially if you right now, your body's sort of out of whack in some way because you've been eating this way for a long time. So when you change what you eat for breakfast, your body's going to go through some sort of recalibration. And you might find after doing the breakfast experiment, oh, wow, I've identified these 3 breakfasts are great for me. I feel steady. I feel balanced. I'm not running for coffee. My mood is good. But then you might find a month from now that 1 or 2 of them, they're not working so well for you, and you might need to tweak them again. So the right kind of breakfast. We said before that we want a breakfast that balances our blood sugar, right? So what balances blood sugar in terms of macronutrients? Protein, yes. Protein for sure, but protein, fat, and fiber really balance blood sugar. So when I work with people, I tell them you want a PFF breakfast, protein, fat, and fiber. So American breakfast, let's start with that. We'll go with the little breakfast box that we've created for ourselves in this culture. What are some breakfasts that might fit into the PFF? cottage cheese. Not really fiber. We got some protein. Avocado is fat. What do we all eat for breakfast? Eggs. Eggs. Protein and fat in the yolk. So eggs can be a great breakfast for some people, but it may or may not be okay without complex carbohydrates. So everyone has a different metabolism. Some are fast burners, some are slow burners. So I'm a fast burner. If I were to have some complex carbs for breakfast, so say I had like steel cut oatmeal, right? Lots of fiber. That's something that if you ever had, it takes a while to chew because there's a lot of fiber and nutrients still intact in there. Now, if I eat that, 2 hours later at most, I'm going to be hungry and I'm going to have a substantial dip in my energy because my body burns through carbs, even the good carbs, really quickly. So if you're having, let's go back to the eggs. If you have eggs for breakfast, say you're going to experiment with eggs, and you make yourself, I don't know, a veggie scramble, and you've got some, peppers and mushrooms and tomatoes and onions and eggs. You'll see if that works for you. If it doesn't work for you, so you have protein and fat, and you don't have too much complex carbs in there, if it doesn't work for you, you want to add complex carbs. What are examples of complex carbs that you could add to an egg breakfast? Cheese is fat, which is good. So complex carbs are grains, starchy vegetables, beans, lentils, nuts and seeds. So you might do huevos rancheros, black beans, salsa, eggs. See how that affects you. If you're going to add toast, I'll tell you that most breads, even the 28 grain organic in the brown paper bag wrapping that looks all natural, is highly processed. So if you want to try a bread, what I would recommend is using a sprouted grain bread. Are you familiar with this? Sprouted grain bread is found in the freezer section of most health food stores, and it is made from grains and legumes that have been sprouted. And how this is different from other bread is that, one, if you look at the ingredients, there's no preservatives, there's no sugar, there's nothing. There's just intact grains and legumes, which gives you protein. And when they sprout a seed, what happens is, a seed has everything it needs to sprout and become a plant. When you expose that seed to moisture, the sprouting process begins. And any seed, so a grain, a bean, a lentil is a seed. If you plant it, it will grow a plant. And it has 3 parts. There's the outer layers and the inner layer, which is just starch. It's pure starch. It's fuel for the plant to sprout. And when it is exposed to moisture, that sprouting process starts, and that starchy part gets converted to enzymes and vitamins. So when you eat sprouted grain bread, you're getting less starch and more nutrients. And because they add legumes into the mix, you're also getting protein. So sprouted grain bread, as I said, is going to be in the freezer section. If you're used to like a multi-grain bread, you're going to like this. It must be toasted, though. You're not going to defrost a piece and eat it and say, oh, this is so delicious. But if you toast it, you're going to say, it's so delicious. So if you're eating eggs, how you could add complex carbs, you could do beans, you could do sprouted grain bread, or you could add starchy vegetables. You could add potatoes or sweet potatoes into your scramble or your frittata. I like to do sweet potato toast. So in the beginning of the week, will roast a bunch of sweet potatoes, and then when I'm ready to eat, I'll slice one lengthwise and heat it up and put some butter and a little bit of salt, and I eat it with my hands like toast. So I get the complex carbs from that. So that's one breakfast that could work for you, or a variation of that breakfast. Intact grains. So intact grains. A lot of people eat oatmeal, I guess is the most common, right, for breakfast. Anyone here eat oatmeal for breakfast? Oh, a lot of you. All right, so on the spectrum of oatmeal, we've got instant oats with lots of sugar in those little packets that you add the water, and they taste really good, and you don't have to even chew them. You can just swallow them because they've already been macerated and steamed and rolled and everything else. And then we got old-fashioned oats, then we got steel-cut oats, then we got oat groats. Oat groat is the seed. Nothing's been done to it. It came off the plant. If you were to plant it, you'd grow an oat plant. That is the most natural, least processed form, not processed at all, form of oats. If you are eating instant oats of some sort, rolled oats of some sort, what I would suggest you do is experiment by swapping that out with either steel-cut oats or oat groats and see how that affects you differently. Steel-cut oats and oat groats take a lot longer time to cook than pour water over and wait 60 seconds. But you don't have to cook them each morning. You can cook a batch of steel-cut oats or oat groats at the beginning of the week, put them in the fridge, and when it's breakfast time, heat it up, add a little, I like to add a little milk or liquid because it sort of gets hard and congealed in the fridge. You need a little liquid. Add some nuts or seeds or fruits or a maple syrup and see how that affects you. Now we need to talk about, but what if you're a fast burner and the steel-cut oats still don't hold you? So I'm going to pause. I'm going to say something and come back. You know you've nailed the right breakfast when your hunger doesn't arise until 3 to 4 hours after you've eaten breakfast, and when it does arise, it is slow and gradual, not hard and fast. It's like, I'm starting to feel a little hungry. Oh, it's 11 o'clock. That makes sense. It's almost lunchtime. I'll start thinking about lunch in a little while. Versus, oh my God, I'm so hungry and I have to eat something right now. I'm stopping everything. Then you know, not a good breakfast, because that is the crash, right? So back to the oats. If you have steel-cut oats or oat groats and it's still not giving you the 3 to 4 hours, you want to add protein and fat. Predominantly fat is what is going to help. So fat is the slowest burning fuel. When we add fat to our meals and snacks, it satiates our hunger for a longer amount of time than protein and carbohydrates will. And this is another lecture for another time, but I will just say, fat does not make you fat. Fat does not give you heart disease. Fat is not evil. We actually need fat. Eating good fats is more important than the amount of fats that you eat. So if you're eating oats and you're finding it's not satisfying you for 3 to 4 hours, fats, what could that be? Nuts, seeds, nut butters, coconut oil. Coconut oil is a medium chain fatty acid. It doesn't get broken down by the liver. It gets burned immediately by your body for fuel, which means it basically stokes metabolism. So coconut oil, you want to get virgin coconut oil, is not a bad fat. People are thrown by the fact that it's solid at room temperature because it has a melting point of 76 degrees. It is a good for you fat. So that could be stirred into your oats. So let me talk about how to do the breakfast experiment. Where's your handout? Well, you have it. I don't have it. May I borrow this just 1 second and I'll give it right back? Thank you. All right. So on the first page, I give you how to do it. And this is what you do. You choose 4 to 5 at breakfast. You include the ones that you regularly eat, because you may think you know what their effect is on you, but when you do this experiment, one of the most important parts of this experiment is that you are paying attention to how you feel. Most of us are not. Most of us are totally disconnected from our bodies. We live in our heads. We don't even know what the hell is going on down there most of the day, right? So the idea is that you want to be paying attention to how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you include your regular breakfast that you normally eat, and maybe you include 2 or 3 more. Based on what I'm telling you today, you could round out what you're going to include. And then you have each breakfast. I recommend having each breakfast 2, maybe even 3 days in a row if possible, because one, you want to sort of control for other variables. So say that you have whatever, breakfast number 1 this morning, but you had a bad night's sleep or you're stressed about something else. You can't maybe tell exactly how that breakfast affects you, but if you have it for 2 or 3 days in a row, and you don't even necessarily have to have it in a row, but 2 or 3 different times, then it's more scientific. And if you do it in a row, you can also see if there is a cumulative effect that it's having on you. And then I gave you on your page 2, where you write everything down, I strongly encourage you, whether you use this paper or you use your phone or whatever you use, write down what you eat and how you feel, because I can almost guarantee that you won't remember at the end of 7 days exactly what happened. If it is written down, the patterns and the effects will be more clear to you. And then on here, I gave you some, that says breakfast ideas. Oh yeah, that is what it was supposed to be. Breakfast ideas, and then I gave you some recipes of things that maybe you're not as familiar with. Chia breakfast pudding. You guys have probably heard of chia seeds, right? Everyone's eating chia seeds and putting them in everything these days. So you can make this breakfast pudding with chia seeds, which is extremely filling. Chia seeds have an incredible amount of soluble and insoluble fiber, which not only balances blood sugar really well, it's also really good for cleaning out gunk in your intestines. And it's like a magnet for toxins in your body to get them out of your body. And actually tastes really good too. The only thing is, I'll tell you, if you're a person who doesn't like tapioca or pudding-like textures, it's not going to be for you. It's for most people who don't like it, it's a texture thing more than anything else. So then I gave you a grain-free breakfast cereal. So if you do this experiment and you're like, you know what, these carby things, these oats, this is not working for me. Or if you already know that grains just generally are inflammatory for you, you can make a sort of oatmeal without oats. Now I gave you something that I use. It's flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, shredded coconut, chia seeds, and you just grind this all up. So this is like the healthier version of instant oats. If you grind this all up and you have it in a jar in the fridge, it's as easy as taking a scoop out, putting it in a bowl, adding hot water, and adding your flavorings to it. This is not a specific recipe. You could add any amounts of these things and you could switch it up. You don't have to use chia seeds, and you could add pecans to it. You're just grinding up nuts and seeds. The chia and or the flax, it is what gives it more of that porridge, so you probably want to include at least one of those. And then a frittata. A frittata is a great way to batch cook eggs at the beginning of the week if you need to get up and fly out the door, and it's a great way to add vegetables to breakfast because we all need to eat more vegetables. And then I gave you coconutty oats that you can make with steel cut or oat groats, and then smoothies. So for those of you who are eating smoothies for breakfast, most people who are making smoothies are not making them in a way that do them justice at all. Vegetables, fruit, great, but you want to be mindful of what kind of fruit. You want to throw in a whole bunch of high glycemic fruit. If you're making a smoothie that has bananas, pineapples, and a little bit of spinach with some fat-free yogurt, no way. That is going to make you feel happy and good for 20 minutes, and then you're going to crash. So again, what are we looking for? Protein, fat, fiber. So protein. It can be that you're adding Greek yogurt in there. It can be that you're adding nuts or seeds. Hemp seeds have more protein than any other nut or seed by volume, and it's the most easily absorbable plant-based form of protein, and they taste delicious. No one doesn't like hemp seeds. And they have anti-inflammatory fats in them. So you could add that. You could add chia seeds, ground flax for fiber. Chia will give you fiber. Fat. What are you going to add for fat? Quarter of an avocado. It may sound weird. It's not going to make your smoothie taste weird. It's going to give it a lovely creaminess. Coconut butter. Do you know what coconut butter is? It's the meat of the coconut that's been creamed into a butter, like peanuts are to peanut butter. It's super delicious, and it gives a little bit of a sweetness to things that you added in. Or some other nut butter, or some people use flax oil. You could put flax oil in there. If you use protein powders, you really have to be discerning. Most protein powders are highly processed, pro-inflammatory. I gave you a couple of names on your handout that are cleaner, better protein powders. But again, if you're doing a smoothie, you have to be super careful. Even when you add a lot of protein, fat, and fiber, it may not hold you for as long as some of these other breakfasts. That is what I observe for most people. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily that you can't have a smoothie, because a smoothie is a great way to get in fruits and veggies and superfoods and things that might be more difficult to get if you didn't throw them all in a blender and drink it with a straw. But you might know that if you have a smoothie, that you might have to have a sort of substantial snack between breakfast and lunch to keep your blood sugar nice and stable. Does that make sense? Okay. So I want to stop here and see if there's any questions. Is anyone not? Yes? How long after you wake up should you eat breakfast? So there's not an exact answer to that. For most people, within an hour of rising, but that's not everyone. If you are looking to lose weight, if you're hypoglycemic, if you have PCOS, if you have insulin resistance, if your doctor said, oh, we're watching that glucose and A1C because it's sort of getting higher, then within 1 hour of rising is going to be better for you. But you can wait for your hunger to naturally arise. Here's the thing. Most people have trained their body to adapt to an unhealthy eating schedule. So they say, people come and they say, I'm not hungry until 11 o'clock, Tina. These are the same people who are telling me that they're, eating a thing of ice cream and a bag of potato chips and nuts and cereal after dinner. So, if they eat breakfast, they're probably not going to have all of that. You might need to go through a process of retraining your body by eating little bits of food, and then your body, in all likelihood, will start to recalibrate, and you'll wake up and you will feel hungry way before 11 o'clock. Does that answer your question? Yes?
In the mornings, I have to eat some protein to feel awake, but if I eat stuff like oatmeal, I want to go to sleep.
So, yes. So the comment was, in the morning I must eat protein in order to feel awake and good. If I eat oatmeal, I'll feel tired, but I can eat oatmeal at lunch. Anyone else notice this? Yes. So what you start the day with is so important for your blood sugar and putting everything in motion. If you are waking up, when we wake up, we already have low blood sugar, right? Because we haven't eaten anything in a while. So depending on if you're a fast metabolizer, or if you tend towards hypoglycemia, or if you have some insulin resistance, that's what I would expect to happen with oatmeal for breakfast. That it would be better for later in the day, complex carbs, but that you need to eat protein for breakfast. So this is the type of things, if you're not aware already, that you will become aware of in your breakfast experiment. So who knows about the law of diminishing intent? The longer the amount of time between the time you set the intention to do something and the time you actually start doing it, the lower the chances that you're going to do it. Translation, you start this tomorrow or the next day. Well, if you're sitting there thinking, wow, you know what, I'm thinking like what she's saying might apply to me. I feel like if I do this, I might be able to figure out things and feel a little better. you want to put that plan in motion immediately. And here's the thing. Once you do it, it's going to take you a week, maybe 10 days tops. And you're going to figure this out, and then you're going to have a new breakfast, and then you are going to feel better throughout the rest of every day after that. So it's a huge payoff. I do this work when I work with clients privately first, because I know what a major positive impact that it can have. And I want that for you as well. So I just want to close with a couple more things, because you have to get to another session. And if we have a minute, I'll take another question or two. On the handout, there is my website. There are recipes. I have a recipe section on my handout, so if you want more recipe ideas, you can check there. Every year I do a leaded spring cleanse. It's not a cleanse. So if you think of a cleanse as like fasting or drinking water with lemon juice and maple syrup, it's nothing freaking like that at all. It's basically like a clean eating immersion. It is that you're cleaning up your diet and identifying potential food sensitivities. I lead you through this process. It's sort of similar to the breakfast experiment. It's the next step to identify overall how different foods might be affecting you. And just cleaning up your diet and learning more about nutrition. It is very comprehensive. There is a ton of education and support. It is hands down my most popular program. And I know this is going to sound salesy, but it is true. It is the quickest way that I can get someone feeling good in their body because they're eating well. Within a month, people feel significantly better on many different levels. So if you signed up on that sign-in sheet, you might win free participation in the cleanse. We'll choose one person, and I'll send you an email that will be able to participate. And if you don't win, there's sort of a backup prize. When actually my web developer is putting all the information on my website now for the spring cleanse. So if you go there at this moment, all you're going to see is the dates and more information coming. But when I do announce it, if you signed up on that sign-in sheet, I will send you an email with a discount code that will save you $50 if it's something that you want to do. So can I take another question? Okay. There was a, yes. How do I feel about bars? Most bars are, well, let me ask you. You look like smart people. Do you think bars are real food? No. So, yes, unless you make them yourself. So, bars are for emergency situations. You pick out one that's better, that has less sugar, that has more protein, knowing that this is not optimal food, this is not something I do regularly and expect to be healthy and feel good, but in a pinch when it's, stopping at 7-Eleven and finding something or not eating anything at all, maybe then it's a better option. Yes? Yeah. Do you lose nutrients if you make a smoothie and you don't ingest it within the next 15 minutes or so? That's a great question. So, yes, you will lose some nutrients, but if you eat the smoothie that you made within 24 hours, you will still get most of the nutrition. I wouldn't worry at all. I know that for a lot of people, time and schedules are busy, and so the chances of them eating a smoothie, if maybe they make it the night before so that they could grab it in the morning and go, that they're more likely to eat it, then absolutely. Like that's something that on the cleanse that we talk about too, because there's smoothies and lots of vegetables, and we do a lot of prepping stuff ahead of time because let's face it, everyone's busy. Like you can't really prepare all your meals as you go every day. Setting yourself up for the week is a way to ensure success. Thank you for that question. Yes? The question is, do I have a recommended daily supplement? I don't have a recommended daily supplement, and I'm not honestly sure that everyone needs to be, taking daily supplements. I think it depends on the person, the health challenges, what we know about how their body operates. I do believe that probiotics, vitamin D, and fish oil, most people are going to benefit from. But beyond that, we're going to see what your blood work looks like, and also what we know about your body and your health conditions. If we know that you have a particular condition which is causing your liver to have to work at triple time, then maybe we're going to add a little milk thistle in, knowing that your body needs some TLC and support to do what it's going to do. But I don't think that necessarily just taking supplements, for the sake of taking them, is necessary. Yes.
You mentioned earlier to stay away from low-fat flavored yogurts. Is there a yogurt brand that you recommend?
Yeah. So the question is, you mentioned staying away from low-fat or fat-free yogurt brands. Is there a brand you recommend? Well, one, you want to look for one that doesn't have a sweetener. You can sweeten it yourself by adding a little bit of maple syrup or honey. And there's a trick. If you add a little bit of vanilla extract to yogurt, it makes it taste sweet, even though you're not adding sugar. So and especially if you like vanilla flavor, you add a few drops of vanilla extract, and then you only need a little bit of a sweetener. The commercial ones, like Dannon and Low Play and all of that, generally have none of the good probiotics in it that you want when you're eating yogurt or what you think that you're getting. The Greek yogurts and ones that you find in health food stores generally are going to give you more of that good stuff. But I look for no sweetener and some fat in it. You want the fat. And you could do an experiment. If you eat low-fat or fat-free yogurt that's your regular, add that into your experiment and do it a few days and write down what you notice. And then eat a full-fat yogurt or a reduced-fat yogurt with nuts and seeds and see how that makes a difference. So I think we have to end here because you have another session, but thank you so much for your kind attention and your presence and your good energy. I wish you a successful breakfast experiment and balanced blood sugar. Have a great rest of the day.